How many of you are familiar with Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah.
And read the first 4 lines. Would you tell me, please, which way I go from here?
I use that.
That depends a lot on where you want to go, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go. Which is really saying, if I can embellish that in the Hasidic teachings, that there are many right answers in life. But the one you choose makes it right for you if you throw yourself into it. A lot of people have self-doubt, thinking that there's only one right answer amongst many wrong answers. Whatever the problem is, whatever the situation, whatever the relationship issue might be. And that's simply not true. There are many right answers. And you can rarely be wrong. But if you have doubts, and you don't throw yourself into it, then it won't work. And that's true in business, it's true in every particular arena of life. So to have confidence that there's always the right answer by you making it right. So like the cat, live with purpose and you know where to go. In other words, how do I respond to the current situation? What do I do first, which is today's session, prioritization. How do I actually approach the situation? What's the first thing I do? Well, the first thing you do is whatever you choose to do first and do it well. Because there's, like in any painting, now I'm not a painter, but I know that some of you are, whether you start from the top or the bottom or left or the right, etc., won't necessarily alter the ultimate outcome if you have a clarity as to the total picture. So it doesn't matter where you start, but you've got to have that clarity, you've got to have that sense of purpose which we spoke about last week, and you've got to be able to throw yourself into it with confidence. Same in healing and in health. One of the major obstacles to health and well-being is self-doubt. It's the fear, the medication is wrong, the outcome is not going to be good, etc. And we know full well that when we have doubt, our body chemistry is different. And it's not conducive to health. And when we're confident, and we have a sense of personal confidence, then that changes the body chemistry also, and happens to be conducive to health. The way Hashem created the world is, positivity creates positive outcomes. That's just a law of creation. Positivity creates positive outcomes. So you can say, okay, but I remember when I really was very confident and I did something and it blew up in my face. Well, sometimes the short answer is God knows better than you. In other words, helping you despite yourself, whatever might be the case. So that's the where. But living by priority tells you what. In other words, what do I do first in any problem-solving situation? If you don't have that in place, then you can't even begin the process of what it might be, relationship healing or a relationship evolution or whatever might be the case. Now, priority should always be in the singular. A lot of people attack a problem and say, right, I have to do A, B, C, D, and E. Priority is one. It's not priorities. Priority means first things first. One thing only. That's what you throw yourself into. If you start saying, okay, I've got a solution, I have to do A, B, and C, it won't work. You've only got to begin with A. And A is the key to the success of B and C, but only A. Step one. Okay, so let's look at goal setting and do a little bit of an exercise. So, do the first one. What is the one thing I want to achieve for my family someday? I'm not going to ask you to share this necessarily. I want you to be clarifying in your mind at the moment. Jot down one thing. Now, there are many things you may want to jot down, but jot down one thing that you want to achieve for your family someday. Okay. Any of you are okay in sharing it? I'm not going to ask you if you're not. Would you love to share it? Yes.
Yes, cooperation.
Cooperation. You'd like to achieve cooperation within the family. Anyone else?
Fulfillment.
Again, fulfillment. You want to create fulfillment. You mean for yourself or for members of the family or for everybody?
Everyone.
Okay.
And their goals.
I don't have fulfillment. Great.
I think unity.
Unity. To create a sense of unity. Hello. How are you? A sense of unity. Okay. Anyone else want to offer? Just
Same thing, closeness. Just keep
closeness.
the family
All right.
together. General happiness.
General happiness. Okay. These are very obvious ones and very pertinent ones. We're just on number 3. We're just looking, what is the one thing that I want to achieve for my family someday? And people have written down one item, whatever that might be. Okay, now based on your someday goal, it comes a little harder, what is the one thing I can do in the next 5 years to achieve this? You've got 5 years' time. What is one practical thing? It's got to be a real thing that you can do, and you've got 5 years to do it, to achieve that particular goal that you set. This is not an easy one because you're projecting 5 years down. What can I do over 5 years to make that work? This is not something you have to achieve tomorrow, but in over 5 years. What do you think?
I can only think about set an example now.
Set an example. That means you have picked a hard one. That means over 5 years, you have to be a model. Okay, that's good.
That's just for a start.
Fine.
You can
Fine. Any others?
Being supportive, being present, being there and encouraging
Fine.
at all times.
Yes.
Making sure at least once a month I try and put together a family dinner or lunch or something, everyone together.
Okay. Now, let me say that you are all terribly ambitious, because it's very unlikely that you can maintain consistency with what you say. And therefore, if you fail once, if someone fails you once, you remember the once failure. And that's a problem. So I'm only commenting, because I'm going to show you this as we go through it. This is a system. Look at the next one. Based on my 5-year goal, what is the one thing I can do this year to achieve this? Now, because many of you put 5-year goals so ambitiously, you would probably write the same thing for a 1-year goal. So I want you to go back and I want you to rethink the 5-year goal. What is my someday goal? Next 5 years. And also, if you want to rewrite that, but also answer this one. What is the one thing you want to do this year to achieve that 5-year goal? So if you say 5-year goal is, say, fulfillment with a family, what will you do practically this year as a stepping stone to it. And now trying to be more practical. Fulfillment is a big word, happiness is a big word, cooperation is a big word. They're big words. What can you do practically this year in order to achieve in 5 years that result? Okay, what did we come up with?
So I'm not sure, but I think maybe I'll spend more one-on-one time to be able to understand, you know.
Okay, spend more personal time.
Yeah.
Well, the same.
You do the same again?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
I do that.
Okay, what is that? Remind me what your 5-year goal was.
Yes, being supportive.
Being supportive. So I want you to now rewrite your one now. How will you be supportive this year? In other words, being supportive, that's a very big word. What will you do this year in order to create supportiveness?
Well, first of all, I immigrated from Perth to here to be
Yes.
supportive, to be
That's
for
fine.
them and with
Fine.
them. And
But
if they need me at any time, I'm here. You know.
absolutely,
So whatever they need, I'm
Yes.
here for them.
you're absolutely correct.
And my husband too.
Yes.
And so whatever they need, we're available.
Okay.
And that's why.
So what you would do is re-look at the first one that you wrote. What is the one thing I want to achieve for my family? You've already achieved it, what you're saying. We wanted in the first one to tell us what is not yet achieved. What do I want to achieve for my family, which means multiplication, which I haven't yet achieved. So if you're already doing that, yeah, they can work on it. You're good. That's good. Now, for the very first one, you have to ask yourself, what is it that I want to achieve? That means they haven't yet got there. You've got already what you're talking about, so your exercise won't work. You want to find something, well, what is it that I want to achieve? That's not there yet. Okay, then you go through the next questions. What's the thing you want to do this year?
Get the family together so we can brainstorm
All right.
ideas of how we can make it
Okay,
better.
so it would be, and your previous 5-year goal was?
To make sure we try to get together once a month to have
Okay.
family get together.
Fine. So what you will continue is going all the way through, and you probably end up saying the same thing all the way through. Therefore, you probably would have wanted to, in your 5-year plan, to look at something less specific. What is it I want to achieve over the 5 years? I want to achieve something which is broader than meeting once a month, because meeting once a month is already a mechanism to something. The month to month is a good idea, but it's a mechanism to something. So what would you be really wanting to achieve by the month-to-month meeting?
Just sharing of ideas. And
So that would be your 5-year plan. I want over 5 years to be able to have a regular system of sharing of ideas. And then your 1-year plan is we'll meet monthly in order to achieve that. We're learning the system at the moment, so we just elaborate. What was your first one? You can start from the first one. Any others?
I would like to achieve physical and mental and spiritual health.
For your family. All right, that's all right. So if that's your first one, what will you do in the next 5 years to achieve that? That's the second line.
I will be learning about how to do it.
Okay, that means you have to undergo a reading course, a study course, informal, etc., gain information. What will you do this year to achieve that? That's right. So you've set yourself a very, very tall goal. I will continue learning. You want to be then more specific in this one. In this year, I will make sure that once a month I finish a book. I will make sure that once every 2 weeks I will watch some documentary. I will make sure that once a month I will go to a course session or something. You want to be much more specific what you want to achieve in terms of this year. Go to the next one. Based on my 1 year goal, what is one thing I can do this month to achieve this? So just play the game. You will now find that you probably should have done something differently earlier on, but it doesn't matter. You're learning a system here. Okay? Based on my 1 year goal, what is the one thing I can do this month? The month is approaching May. What can you do during the month of May to achieve that goal? You could say, in the session that I attend, or from the documentary that I watch, I will take one item to implement. You know that you've got to be more specific, get more specific and more specific. And you can finish it off by doing the last three. Based on my 1 month goal, what is the one thing I can do this week to achieve this? You might say, well, I'm going to take my oldest daughter or my youngest daughter and I'm going to do this with her this week. More specific, more specific. And then based on my 1 week goal, what is the thing I can do today to achieve this? And then right now. Well, right now you're sitting in a class, so what could that possibly be? Right now is I'm going to diarise a time to do that, whatever that is. So each time, at each step, what you're doing is becoming more and more specific. But what people do, unfortunately, is they start backwards. They start from the bottom and work their way up. It never works. You've got to have a vision of what it is that the goal is in the long term and keep bringing it back, because that's what you want to achieve. Your goal is out there. And as you bring it back, you create priority. So right now, you will diarise. That will already provide a priority for the week, which in turn will provide a priority for the month and the year and 5 years, etc., etc.
I think the 5 year goal is too far away.
It might be for some. You might want to start the exercise at a 1 year goal. This is arbitrary. This is arbitrary. Depends on the situation. Here at Spiritgrow, 5 years is too short. At a 10 year goal, for example. So it just depends on the context as to what that longer vision is in order to achieve. And that's not going to be the sole thing you want to achieve for your family. There are many things you want to achieve for your family, and they may have different time frames. But the idea is to begin out there rather than begin now. Because beginning now might not relate to an ultimate vision whatsoever. I have to prepare dinner for my family. How will that contribute to some bigger vision for your family that you want to achieve in the long term? So you start now, it's very narrow-minded.
They'll learn from me and
They'll learn
down the track.
very good. So they will learn how to make dinner, and therefore what? They might still continue to be arguing as to what I want to have for dinner, and no, you're wrong, and no, I'm right. You're not necessarily going to have it, okay? So from here doesn't provide you the vision. You've got to go from out there, whatever out there means. Very, very important to have a vision which relates to your purpose, which we did last week, and then to be able to whittle it down so you have what to do on a trajectory from this moment and forward in time. And be on target. Then you can tell yourself, am I on target or not? Do you think that which you really want, and each of you might have, which again is your private affairs, what the problem is within the family, don't share it. Do you think you could apply this towards a problem-solving technique? Does anyone in this room doesn't think that that's possible? For example, let's take two siblings in our families are not talking to each other. Say we are the parent or grandparent, and two of our children or two of our grandchildren are not talking to each other, okay? Take a situation not dissimilar to that. What might be a 5-year plan in that situation? What might be a 5-year plan?
To make them, to bring them closer to each other, to make them...
Fine. Good. So the 5-year plan is to create reconciliation. Absolutely. All right. Having thought of that as the big picture, etc., and you have to be dedicated to do it. What would be then the this year plan towards that? How would you advise someone what to do this year in order to achieve that?
To create opportunities maybe for them.
Provide opportunities. All right. Good. Provide opportunities. So you have to brainstorm what are the opportunities, given that they're not talking to each other, what kind of opportunities, and you have to come up with answers, because leaving it opportunities doesn't work. You have to actually create some possibility. They're not talking to each other. So what's the opportunity? What might be a logical opportunity, do you think?
Find out what each individual needs now.
Good. Keep going. What might be a logical opportunity in a family setting to bring people together?
Some special occasion.
What special occasion?
My
Shabbos.
birthday.
Shabbos, might not. Birthday, more personal, is more likely to work. Mother's birthday, each sibling will have a loyalty factor. Mightn't work, but most often it will. And begrudgingly, they'll come to my birthday. I'm going to have my birthday party. All of you are about 36 years of age. My 36th year birthday, I'd like you to come. So you create an opportunity. So that would be your 1-year plan, because you only have one birthday a year. So that becomes the beginning point. And you might say to yourself, you know what, I can't do anything till my birthday, because that's the only thing I can think of where they could come together. If you can think of another sooner occasion, well and good. But you have to find that. So that will be a 1-year plan. All right, what can you do this month? Say your birthday is in 6 months' time. What can you do this month in order to achieve that?
Start talking about...
But if you talk to them about it, usually people find it hard to speak about my birthday is 6 months prematurely. Don't forget my birthday in 6 months. It's a bit hard. It's a bit hard.
Maybe going on a weekend, which involve...
Planning how you will
family
celebrate the
activity.
birthday. Planning what's the setting going to be. How will I make it happen in the most ideal setting that some sort of closeness could be forged? So what you're going to do this month is to plan the nature of it. Okay? What will you do this week to achieve it? You might think through the wording of an invitation. How will I make it clever wording so that it really does appeal and disarms the problem? You become more specific and think that through. What's the one thing you will do today to achieve this? You'll put away time. You'll sit down for half an hour, you'll say, in my diary between 12 and 12:30, I'm going to sit aside and begin that process of wording, etc. Okay, what am I going to do right now? I'm going to diarise that time. So you see how you can take anything and bring it back and be able to know that you're on target for whatever it is. And what you're doing is you're prioritising your problem-solving technique.
What if someone in the family suffers from tremendous narcissism?
That's a very rare circumstance, isn't it? No joking. All right.
Not in Jewish families, I
Okay.
don't think.
All right. Narcissism. Narcissism meaning very egotistic to the point of being self-centered about everything. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What might be your 5-year plan in terms of that kind of a setting?
To make them see how narcissistic they are.
Okay. All
And
right. So, in other words, the 5-year plan is
bring it to their notice. They don't know it
now.
yet.
But if you make that your 5-year plan, then you bring to the notice, it may take another 5 years before they solve it after that. You may want to be more ambitious with your 5-year plan. It may be that you want to say your 5-year plan is, I'd like them to learn to become more other-centered rather than self-centered. I want already for them to be able to practice becoming more compassionate, caring human being, aware of the other. That might be the 5-year plan, okay? So what would you do this year to achieve that?
So I say it's very difficult to change somebody else. You can only really change yourself.
Let's brainstorm it. What will you do this year in order to help the other person do that? So we've got a 5-year plan, we've got a problem, you may be right, but let's work it through. What might you do this year to change the other person's nature? What would you do this year?
To organize some sort of think about some sort of occasion that will, everyone can participate and have the part.
But it's very hard, as was said, to expect that therefore through that occasion they will change. You want to have a process of allowing them to change. So you might say, this year I'm going to make it into a learning year. I'll drop them pieces of literature. I'll refer them to certain materials. I will put in front of them the possibilities of them discovering about this, not them, because they're perfect, but about it, etc. Drip feed materials, right? What will you do this month in order to achieve that? You might just arrange to send already the first one that you found that being suitable. What will you do this week?
I'll go for a walk and talk about the material.
Maybe, but it's very unlikely they're going to listen to you if they're self-centered, right? So this week you may want to actually choose which of the items you will send. And what will you do today? Today you will photocopy it and make it, etc. And what will you do this moment? This moment you will make sure that you set aside time to do that exercise today. You just want to keep working your way back. Okay, good. Turning to page 2. The last step defines your family priority right now. In other words, what will you do right now within the 24-hour period of this day? What will you do right now? What is your priority right now? And remember, what you're doing right now will help your family. You have to have confidence that what you're going to choose to allocate your time now, right this now, and that might, when I say now, it might be 2 o'clock, it might be at 4 o'clock, whatever the now you choose to be. That now moment is going to be the moment that kicks the whole process off. It's pivotal. If you tried simply asking, what is the one thing I can do right now to achieve my 5-year goal, it wouldn't work. That's what I said earlier. If you start with now, you're not talking about 5 years. Okay, I've got 2 siblings that don't speak to each other. You know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to ring one of them up and talk them into speaking to the other. Of course it's not going to work. And if you say, well, you know what, I'm going to do A, B, it won't work. You don't have a vision of what you really want to achieve, and you haven't got a system of prioritizing your time in order to achieve that goal. So what will happen? You'll do it today, it won't work. Oh, hopeless, not going to bother. Got to have that vision. You've got to have that plan. You've got to have a system of each time frame doing something about it. And that's why most people don't achieve their family goals. They don't connect today to all the tomorrows it takes to get there. They don't prioritize. And that's the truth. Most of the people that I ever see is, I tried, I really tried, I really tried. Yes, you did try, absolutely. You tried once, 5 times, the same thing, without any plan, and gave up when it didn't work. And it's very unlikely to work if that's what your methodology you're adopting.
So you say you should change. If it doesn't work today, if it's
No,
not going to work tomorrow, then you should try.
You have to begin with 5 years. That's the point I'm making now. If you can't develop a vision of 5 years and translate it into 1 year and translate it, then whatever you do today is very unlikely to work. If you've got a 5-year plan, etc., then you know that what you do today is an attempt, and if that doesn't work, you've got to do another thing in order to get to the next week, or another thing, and keep working at that point. But you have a vision of where you want to be in a month's time, in a year's time, etc. But if you don't have that vision, you haven't got the capacity or the zitzfleisch to be able to go and say, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. You have to do that. You have to
form of CBT, then, a form of CBT? That
Well, you can say it's
that
cognitive mechanisms, but all we're doing is using our sensibility. Well,
it's
you know,
how you approach it.
Yeah,
It's how you
all
say
the word cognitive means, and a lot of people using it in a particular way and creating systems out of using the word cognitive, and there are other words that are buzzwords that are doing. The word cognitive simply means mind.
Yes,
All you're doing is using your mind.
yes,
You're thinking.
It's,
You're
it's
thinking.
how
That's
you
all.
say things.
You're
It's not
thinking.
what you say, it's how you say. And you weigh every word that you know, before you say it.
That requires planning, that requires thinking, that requires knowing what you're going to do now, and tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, etc. It's no good saying, well, I thought about it today, this is what I'm going to say, it didn't work, goodbye Charlie. That means you've thrown out your vision completely out, you've got no priorities over coming months and years. Okay. So no, I prefer to steer clear of terminologies and just use common sense as the bottom common denominator of what we're talking about here. I'm just providing system to the common sense, that's all. The step from knowing to doing. This is a big step. There's a teaching in Hasidus that says, "Hamaisahu ha'ikar," that the main thing is to do it. The main thing is to keep the main thing, and do it. Okay? Now, a lot of people go for counseling, go to therapists, go to financial advisors, go to various people in the know, etc., and they keep talking about it, but never take real steps in life to actually begin the process. That's why what you're doing today is central. It's not enough to think today, you have to do today. Even if that doing is simply putting it into your diary. If it's even as simple as that. Once it's in your diary, you have a commitment to do it. I'm going to assume that the things in your calendar are something you're committed to. But at least you do. A lot of people go week after week, oh, I forgot, okay, I forgot again. I haven't got the time. Everyone's got the time, but you just have to put it into your calendar, and it becomes the time. If you have a doctor's appointment at 2 o'clock, would you say, I don't have the time? No, you go to the doctor's appointment. Well, this is more important than the doctor's appointment because you're healing 2 people and not just yourself. Right? So the doing of it is terribly important. In Hasidic teachings, we learn that there are 3 levels of the soul reaching out and touching the world. The first level is machshava, thought process. When you're thinking, your soul is stretched. Thinking is not necessarily easy. When you think, but it's still internal, it's still inside me. It's part of my internal communication. When I speak, it requires more effort than thinking. Speaking requires more effort than thinking. Will you agree to that? To say, open your mouth and speak. I could remain quiet. I could sit here for the next hour and not open my mouth, and you can sit here and say, wonder what he's called us in for. He's not saying anything. But that's because I'm lazy. I prefer to think about things. I want to think about things. If I'm going to speak, there's an effort. Effort means that I'm taking my soul and stretching it out of my body to you. Speaking is me touching you verbally. That's already stretch. But you're not going to change the world by speaking. You'll only change the world or situations by doing. And when you do things, you take the neshama, you take the soul, and you stretch it even further out to such an extent that it impacts the world. So you can say to yourself, or you can say to me, yes, I'm going to put into my calendar, but you know what, you may never do so. Until you lift the pen and actually write it, your life for that day will not change. Action, the doing of it, is what changes the world and changes yourself. And there's a feedback loop. The more you do things, the more you change yourself. And the best example is music and piano, for example. As I often give the example, you can spend as much time as you want learning the theory of music and become expert in it and get degrees in the history of music, and you can become the best music historian, and still your fingers won't play the piano. Until you actually do it, until you actually practice with your fingers, you're not going to be able to play the instrument. The thinking of it makes you clever about it, but no one's going to benefit from your thinking about the music. But speaking about it, that's beautiful. You can probably motivate people by speaking about the wonders of music and the beauty of music and the history of the musicians, etc. But they'll only get a sense of the flavour of what might be. But when you sit down with your piano and you have an audience and you play and you see the joy on their face, you recognise that your doing of something actually creates change. Only doing things create change. Not only in them, but in yourself. Because the more that you do it, the more you're able to do it. Without the first practice session where your fingers don't respond ideally through to the 5,000th practice session where they play it fluently, the doing of it is what creates the effect. And that's in all things of life. And specifically in relational context. The more that you, someone said earlier, I think it was yourself, the more that you exemplarize, model the doing of it, the more effect it will have. And remember, it's like Rabbi Laibl. You remember how Rabbi Laibl got motivated to study Torah at the age of 40. He was an ignoramus till the age of 40. He was a shepherd, didn't know anything whatsoever. And as he was tending his sheep, he was sitting down on a rock, and he noticed on a nearby rock that there was a little groove in it. And he looked up, and he noticed it was full of water. And he looked up, and he saw that there was always water dripping down on that rock. And that the water created a groove on the rock. And he said to himself, if water can create a groove in a rock, then even an ignoramus like me can be affected by learning. He went on to become one of the greatest rabbis of all times. That's the same with everything. You can change things in your family, but only if you have the consistency. And to have consistency, you have to have a game plan. That's why I keep emphasizing the game plan and the prioritization process. Doing things once, they fail, we tend to give up. No, not if you have a game plan. Got it?
If we don't have a game plan and we're just like coming here and out every day.
That's what we said won't work. It's unlikely to work because you will be dissuaded from continuing. You'll be demotivated. I've tried, because you don't have a bigger picture where the try is in context of. It's like looking at a beautiful painting through a microscope on one point, and you say, well, you can only see the beauty of one point so long, but imagine that point in context of the whole. It assumes a completely different proportion and beauty. Likewise, if you try something now and try it again, and fails, well, you just give up. But if you say, I can see this in the picture of what I have to do over a month, over a year, and it's one drop of water, and slowly, it's not going to happen the first time, second time, third time, but it might happen the 50th time and the 100th time. That's when it really happens. And same in affecting other people. You may not be the person who will create change, but by creating the opening, which you will never know if you have, maybe the 36th person in the chain of events will create the ultimate change. But you have to begin the process. You have to be part of the process in order to be part of the linkage of making it work. So I want you to finish the last sentence. What must you do now? And the now means any time today. I must. And you just can finish it off the way you want without sharing it with me. So last week, it was more abstract purpose. What is the purpose? And we spent a long time looking at purpose and creating purpose. Today it was much more practical, because to take something from that abstract into the reality means that we have to make it concrete, and therefore we have to have methodology. This isn't the only methodology. There are other ways of problem solving. There are other approaches to it. I wanted to share with you one that I particularly personally use, and one that happens to work for me, and I hope that it will work for you as well. And if you redo this exercise that we did today, even in its current format, and apply it to any family issue, any issue in life at all, doesn't have to be a family issue, we're just talking about family issues here. If you apply it to a family issue, you will have, again, you'll feel much better. You'll feel that you're dealing with the problem, and the truth is you are dealing with the problem. And also when you speak in 5 years, it gives you delayed gratification and patience, and you realise that there is a long term in order to create the opportunity. It might be quicker, might happen in 2 weeks' time, but by having that longer term, it means you won't be apprehensive, you won't be impulsive, that you won't be jumping the gun. And that's very, very important, especially in family matters. In family matters, you won't solve it because you sit down and have one reconciliation discussion. It doesn't happen like that, as a rule. Remember that there are many issues in life that we may be working on contemporaneously at the same time. It's not as if we need to work one thing at a time. You can work on 5 or 6 or different plans. But it's important to identify them and to adopt strategies. And you might say, you know, there's too much. This year I'm going to work on this one. Next year I'll work on another one, whatever might be the case. Or you say, yeah, I'm going to work on these 2 or these 3. Completely up to you in your life.
Okay, yes, thank you.
And good luck on the winter time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, that's true.
Any other questions for today? Any other issues at all that arise that we haven't canvassed, nothing to do with today's session?
I found this a bit overwhelming, to be very
A
honest.
very,
I find this whole thing very overwhelming. I
overwhelming.
just try and get through the day to day, and I can't, I stop and think, oh, I can't believe it's been 5 years since whatever, but I don't,
yeah,
I don't feel
It
like
can
I have
be.
a plan for
You're
the
right.
future.
but you know what? I think what you have to do is to say, you know, at the end of the day, when the children are in bed, and I've got those extra 5-10 minutes to myself, let me do some thinking along these lines. The problem is we never do such thinking along these lines. And that's what makes it overwhelming, because where am I going to fit it in? How's it going to happen? My day's so full. In your particular instance where you have children and you need to deal with them and each one has their own issues, what have you, how can I possibly? But the answer is, if you can find a space of even 5-10 minutes at the end of the day when it's relatively peaceful and relatively quiet, and start the approach, you will see that you can do it. I assure
I'm
you.
thinking now, I'm just like, I wouldn't even know where to start, like, what is my goal, what is my purpose, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But remember, you're not asking what is my purpose in life. You're not asking what are my goals in life. You're going to identify one amongst many issues. One, but only one. And you're just going to deal with that one lines exercise. So you can, if you begin to say, well, there's so many, how can I start with? Then you won't. But if you say, okay, it's fairly arbitrary, I'll start with this one. But just to pick one, I assure you what will happen. Your success in this one will spread to your capacity to be able to one by one pick them off one by one as time goes on. Just to pick one, 5-10 minutes at the end of the day when things are quiet, and start the process. Not overwhelming if you do that. The fact that there's another 150, put that aside for that 5-10 minutes. Just choose one. Okay. For those of you for next week we'll finish this off.